Stephen Jekyll here from Defend AZ, along with Scott McPherson Sensei from Defend AZ and Jeff Walters Sensei from Central Phoenix Aikido. And we're here with the Daily Practical, where we look at the practicality in training in martial arts and how can we explore that in our martial arts training. Tonight's topic is a very interesting topic, but before we get to that, a few things. Number one, welcome to our Zoom podcast now. We're shooting this via Zoom. Hopefully everything goes well. And we will try to make sure that this happens on a regular basis. That way everyone can put a face with a name and we can explore this journey together. Second of all, the event that is, if you're not interested or that you're close to Radford, Virginia, I highly recommend you guys checking out Karate College 2021. It's going to be held at the Radford University Athletics Center. It is in Radford. If you guys are close by, it is one of the best martial art camps to attend. Get to train with legends such as Bill Wallace, Henzo Gracie, Dr. Jerry Beasley, and a whole bunch of others. Okay, like I said, it's $189 to enter in, but it is a well worth it camp. In my opinion, I've been going for years. You cannot attend this camp and leave this camp without becoming some form of a better martial artist. Okay, there is information at their website, www.karatecollege.com, and they have a Facebook page as well. All right, that being said, let's dive into our topic. Our topic is knowing the war, but choosing the peace. Kind of a broad topic, but to dive into it, it's essentially saying if you do not know how to have both sides of the coin be very violent and also be very peaceful, you honestly don't have a choice, especially when it comes to a self-defense or a situation that requires you to employ or use your training. That being said, gentlemen, who wants to go first?
Go for it, Jeff.
Come on, Jeff.
Well, it brings me to the old saying, which I'm probably going to screw up, but it's something to the effect of walk softly but carry a big stick, or walk quietly but carry a big stick. So that's what I think of when you talk about knowing the war but choosing peace. So I think if you only know peace and you choose peace, and without being aware that there's bad people out there, bad elements, and people do bad things, and I think as martial artists we should be aware of that. And I think, as I mentioned once before in the other podcast, that when we're going back and forth in our training with each other, when it's our turn to attack, we should be actors. We should, we smile and we're friends and all that, but we should act in that moment that we're attacking 4 times or whatever, that we should have the mindset of someone with intent and bad intent. And our punches should be real, whether they're slow or fast, and our attacks should be real. And that's one of the subjects of this daily practical is, in Aikido, sometimes we tend to throw punches and leave them out there. Well, that's okay for beginning and for basic format, but we should also learn how to pull those punches back very quickly. And guess what? The right just came, the left one is coming, the right's coming again, whatever it is. So that's my beginning thoughts on this subject.
Interesting. So how do you employ that? You use the concept of saying we have to play the roles. Okay. How do you do that if you never had experience?
Well, watch a lot of movies.
I guess that's why there's YouTube. No.
And there's a bad guy fantasy, I think, in all of us, at least me. I'll speak for myself. I choose to be a nice guy, and I think I am. But we all fantasize sometimes about being the bad guy, if you will, or we just recognize it from sometime maybe past experiences. I've had a couple or a few in my life, and a lot of movies and stories we see on in the media. We know the stuff is out there. We know it's bad. We've either experienced it or or aware of it. So
Yeah, I agree. It's almost as if you kind of kid ourselves in some ways. I'm not saying for myself personally, but I think we can all basically agree that we've all three been in a situation, in a training situation at dojo where we're
and a few
saying,
real life ones. Yeah.
yeah, that's so true. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to jump in there. You asked how do you attack correctly if you don't know how? Well, my answer would be hopefully you're learning how. I did not know how to box until after I was taking boxing lessons for some period of time. I didn't know how to fight generally until after I was in martial arts for some period of time. I hope that's what we're learning. But back to the bigger question, the opening question. If I do not know how to fight, if I don't know how to war, to use it as a verb, is pacifism a choice? I would argue it's not a choice. There's only a choice if I have A and B. If I could not fight or if I could fight, but you take one of those away and I don't think I have a choice anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, if you take that away, then what you're left with is what you're going to train with. I mean, what you're going to fight like. I mean, I think we've all heard that saying that you fight like how you train. Well, some is actually going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Some not so much. You know, when I look at my perspective on that, it's like, yeah, you have to know your training needs to be in some way severe enough. I don't mean that in a harsh concept that says, oh, every single night you're walking away, broken bones, bloody nose. None of that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about realistic.
If you have a mutual agreement and you decide you want to go at a little bit higher level or faster or whatever, then it's time to up the training and up the attack.
Exactly. Then in that case, you have to have that agreement. Which, I mean, in training wise, you should know right from the get go what you're doing, or your instructor should at least give you that concept. But if you don't know both sides of the coin, Scott, you're right. You don't get a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. If I don't know how to fight, then pacifism is not a choice. It's the only thing I have.
Yeah, exactly. And then my question is it truly pacifistic? Because
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is this. Okay, so if I've only eaten a bologna sandwich, and that's all I've eaten for the rest of all my life,
For you.
and then, well, I know, poor me, I'm going to think that's the only type of food out there. However, the moment that a steak comes along, I'm going to say, what is that? I'm either going to be shocked by it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, whatever. Hopefully I'm going to eat it. But the fact of the matter is, it can cause such a big difference. I remember when I first started training in Aikido, I thought it was the bee's knees. It was everything. That was the only thing that mattered. Until I decided to try using it for sparring against a striker. And I realized, well, there's a little bit of a reality check. You need to know.
It's humbling.
It is.
It's humbling. Yeah.
And I mean, I highly recommend anyone who's ready for it. I wouldn't necessarily say your first year or month or so saying, oh, I've only been doing Aikido for this short amount of time, then I'm going to jump over. No, get some experience underneath your belt and then experience with another completely different art. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, Scott, you and I both went to boxing and kickboxing. I mean, I also went to karate. And Jeff, you're starting your path with also karate aspect and boxing coming in. So what do you guys think about that?
I wish I had done it in reverse. I did not really understand Aikido. I didn't know this until later. I did not understand Aikido until after I was very competent at boxing. And that's when Aikido made sense, then all the deflections and the stepping out of the way and the tenkoning and all of that. It made sense only after I knew how to box. So in hindsight, I wish I'd done everything in reverse order.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. And I mean, that's why we do it at Defend AZ. For our Aikido class, it's mandatory that you do take at least one striking class with it, so that you're not just gaining just one art, you're gaining both skill sets: how to strike, how to attack properly, and how to be able to use the Aikido joint locks and deflections, etc. Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think mine was backwards, because I started out in Aikido, and you know, it's a very blending art, as you know, and I've never wanted to hit anybody in my life except my sister growing up a lot. But we got past that years, but yeah, we fought like cats and dogs. So
FYI, viewers, we do not condone any form of violence.
Yeah, no sibling violence, but but I learned Aikido as my first martial art. So no, I didn't know how to punch. Or I remember the first real fight that I got into when I was 16, defending my friend, and I was just throwing punches, not knowing what I was doing. I got my butt kicked, but I realized later, as much as I love Aikido, our attacking is limited. So it's very important to understand how attacks happen in reality, so that you can still use Aikido. It's still there. You can use any other art that you've learned, but it's very important to get that realism in training.
Yeah, and we keep coming back to the same concept in some ways. Does an art, like for example, we talked last week about the core attributes, do they change with the different types of striking versus the time wise? And I mean that's why, for example, we end up really focusing on our boxing training, how to use those catching, bobs, weaves, etc., along with the Aikido blending. That way you can have a nice mixture. I mean, Scott, you do awesome at this because you train in boxing on a weekly basis. You train with us on a weekly basis. I mean, have you seen this change your boxing perspective and vice versa?
I'd say that the boxing has changed my Aikido tremendously, and in a good way. Everything is more, can't say more real. So rewind time back a few years. Someone's in class and they're punching me. I was like, I'm not really scared. Now I'm scared. Like, oh, you're punching me. I actually better get out of the way. You're punching me. It's different now. And rewinding then to the opening question, when I didn't actually know what I was doing, could you say that I had a choice to fight or not fight? I mean, like Jeff said, he got his butt kicked when he was 16. If you don't actually know how to catch a punch or deflect a punch or step out of the way when someone's actually trying to punch you, do you actually have a choice? I'd say, well, no.
Yeah, you don't have a choice in that case, and then what you got is what you got.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get your butt kicked, and so be it.
Yeah. And this also brings into a very interesting concept. So there's two sides of a war. One, the actual war concept, and two, the peace. Now, mind you, and all three of us are not soldiers. Okay, none of us are soldiers. We're not military whatsoever. But you have the active war and you have the active peace. There's an in-between stage, though. But here's my point to this. To some arts, in my opinion, there are some arts that have it easier to be able to choose that peace rather than others. For example, striking arts, in my opinion, have it a whole lot harder in some ways to choose more the pacifistic route than the grapplers.
I would agree. If all I know how to do is to punch you or to kick you, if that's all I know, so restated, if I don't know how to grab you, seize you, control your body, I deal with, the proverbial drunk Uncle Louie who's being an ass at the 4th of July party. Do I got to punch him out? That's probably not the best thing for family.
Yeah, and that's going to cause a lot of issues. Again, you're a lawyer, Scott. if your client came and told you, well, I just knocked out this guy on the street because he got into a fight, I mean, what are you going to do? You got to tell him that's something else. Like,
right. You know, sometimes sometimes you're justified under the law in shooting somebody. Sometimes you're not justified under the law in shooting somebody. So you better have options.
exactly. Jeff, what about you? You've been working with security for home surveillance. I mean, you and I have had conversations where you've seen security footage from other cameras where you've seen fights on camera. I mean, would you agree or disagree that a striker sometimes has a harder time to choose a more pacifistic route than the grappler?
Yeah, because my field, for example, let's say someone breaks into your house and you defend yourself. Well, you have the right to defend yourself in your house, and in most cases, I'm guessing when it comes down to a legal battle, someone broke in your house, you're probably going to win the case if you defended yourself. But if you use extreme violence, you're a martial artist and you decide to use extreme violence, then their defense attorney can make a good case out of you're a martial artist. Boy, that's like a whole nother topic there too, because you know what I mean. because there's emotions involved. There's you get heated just because you're a martial artist doesn't. And I think this would go the same for like police officers. It doesn't mean that you can perfectly control every situation, or that you're just because you're martial arts you're going to win. I don't care how skilled you are. You have a better chance. That's you're cutting down the odds. So if someone breaks in your home, if you can restrain them, let's say you take guns out of the equation and use hand to hand here. You restrain them. You have to stop there. You continue to beat them, then you're in trouble. And of course, it goes. There's different levels of severity with the law. Does this person try to attack somebody in your home, or did they just break in? Did you catch them in the middle of it? Someone attacking someone in your home? So then you can use more violence, I assume.
Well, but it's like, for example, you're not.
I shouldn't say violence, but more.
And going back on that topic, I mean, when I was studying for my criminal justice degree, I remember that when I asked my professor about that exact topic, and he said, in the eyes of the law, doesn't matter if they've taken a week to a year or so, they will, the moment that they hear the concepts martial artists, you look a whole lot worse to the jury immediately.
Yeah, it's a label already.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if they are 2 weeks into the class or Bruce Lee. The moment that they had that time frame or that title, boom, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. But let's play devil's advocate here. Let's talk about the grapplers who don't know how to control when they're doing a choke, or they use too much force on a joint maneuver and end up really hurting the person.
Breaking somebody's arm or elbow.
The guy didn't tap. Oh no.
Exactly. Well, and that's a big problem, that if you only limit yourself to say, oh, I can only stop when they tap, again, are you choosing the piece, or are you again back there? What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point. That if in all training he taps and I let go, then in the real situation, am I going to fall back to my training and I'm let go because he squirmed?
Yeah.
Or the other way around. I'm choking him, and the other guy does not tap because he's the bad guy and doesn't know. And the clock is ticking by and I'm still choking him, and the clock is ticking by and I'm still choking him.
Yeah, and then what happens if he pulls out a weapon? Yeah. I mean, a knife, a gun, whatever. How do you know? What are your guys' thoughts?
Right. Have you ever wrestled with somebody with a knife clip, like a pocket knife that clips in your pocket? Most pocket knives have a clip. Have you ever wrestled with a knife and then see how easy it is to pull the knife out? Most people don't.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't think that it would be any collegiate wrestler would look at that. I don't think any sport judoka would look at it. I'm sure it's guaranteed that no practical or a lot of Aikidoka don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about BJJ because I've never really trained with it, but and my first inclination would say probably not.
Probably not.
This
Well,
reminds me of a story. One of those true crime shows. There was I'll make this real quick. There was a guy who was out by a club, and he was talking to this girl. Turned out the girl had a boyfriend. He's a wrestler, and he got upset. They saw this guy talking to her, and so he goes and grabs him and takes him to the ground, starts wrestling with him. Well, the guy felt his life was in danger, so he pulls out a pocket knife, stabs him over the shoulder, and later on, everything concurred with what he said. The way that the blood splattering on the guy's shirt and everything. The wrestler wound up dying. As it turns out, the girl admitted later that he had a history of getting into fights. So this guy was looking at facing some serious time for whatever degree murder. But he was defending himself because he did what he had to do. He had to use his knife because he couldn't defend himself any other way. This was well, he wouldn't be a professional wrestler, but an experienced wrestler. So
yeah.
so he wound up not being found not guilty, but he was really close. He was looking at many years in jail.
I mean, that's a
And
whole
this is
other
the topic you're talking about right now.
Yeah. But I mean, like, for example, when we're talking about what the concept of weapons training, that's a whole another rabbit hole to go into. And I know we're going to cover this in a later topic, but it's scary. When the moment that you bring a weapon, it's scary. I mean, I've seen it while on my case or a few cases. I won't say anything about case-wise because I can't, but I remember being informed, you watch out for these body signs. And there was quite a few times where I knew a knife was going to be drawn on me if I did not play my cards right. And it's scary. So in that case, I would say verbal martial arts are probably some of the best that you could possibly learn. But then again, it goes into saying know when you need to fight and when, hey, you need to walk away. Plain and simple. Know the peace, or know the war, but choose the peace. So on that note, we are coming to the close of our episode. Any final comments, remarks, anything from each one of you?
We need to wrestle with a training knife in our pocket. We haven't done that yet.
Let's do it. That sounds like a blast, actually. I mean, I've seen, like, I know one of my friends, Jim Ginter, who I believe is going to potentially be a potential guest star later on. Just need to ask him first. But has, if I remember correctly, there's like an electric knife. It doesn't give, it's not killing or anything, but when you feel it or touch it to the skin or to the body, it gives a little vibration and tap. And it's like, that, okay, you just got cut there. I mean, I think that's pretty awesome when you can look and say, okay, there's real practical knife training right there without getting cut, but you got cut. I remember there's a drill that my father taught me for this insuring drill where you take a Sharpie or like a washable marker and take a white shirt. And each person has to have that to where, okay, let's see how many times you got cut, where did you get cut, etc. It's a pretty fun drill,
Right.
but let's do that. That sounds like a fun drill to work on. Jeff, what about you?
Last thoughts would be about awareness and not putting yourself in certain situations that, can lead to an attack. So obviously you should go out and have fun in life, but you can cut down your odds considerably if you're aware of your surroundings, aware of what's going on around you. Because the more you get that into your mental muscle memory, when something's amiss, you'll kind of take, like you just mentioned a moment ago about when someone's drawing a knife, you kind of see it right away if you've been practicing. So same thing with being aware of your surroundings everywhere you go at all times. Nowadays, there's so many people who are on their cell phones when they come out of stores or whatnot, and they're just not paying attention. And it's a different era, different day and age.
The cell phone happened, and speaking as a private investigator, the cell phone is one of the worst things that's ever happened to humanity. I mean, seriously, even though it's great, I mean, I love my phone. I will use it for calling, internet, games, whole nine yards. As a private investigator, I can't tell you how many times I followed people and they had no idea that I was following them because they were looking at their phone. It's like, guys, really? Come on.
I'm a full-grown adult, rather large size, and martial artist, and I still look to see if there's anybody around my vehicle when I come out of the grocery store. I scan the parking lot as I'm walking just to, look for potential bad people. It's just a thing I've been doing for years. But it's like you get smaller people or people who are more vulnerable per se. Not that I'm anything to talk about, but I still watch it even in the daytime. It could be 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm still going to be looking at who's around my vehicle. What's going on around me.
That's a super smart idea, and I hope the viewers do take note of that. And also I have one more thing that we need to talk about real quick. I'll make it quick, but it's the body language that you need to know when you go into choosing. Hey, this is not a fight that I need to get into. Jeff, you talk about this all the time. Like, we've had conversations about it. Just knowing a posture.
One of my favorite subjects, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that if we're going to choose the peaceful path, we have to know when that we have to be aware that there's going to be a combative situation before it even begins. Would you all agree that's part of it?
Yeah, and I would pair that with verbal judo.
Verbal judo. Can you explain that to those who don't understand what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's I did not invent the term. I heard the term somewhere. I've seen it in print. It's the idea of de-escalating a situation with your words. Talking the person down. Responding not with anger to anger, but responding with politeness and calmness to anger to bring the energy down and prevent a fight in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, there's a martial arts all three of us know, Wayne Stingley. And I remember he gave some of the best advice I've ever heard of for handling an argument. And hear me out. It is, say the person's calling me names, blah, 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 whatever, and trying to insult me. You look them smack dab in the face and say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Neutralizes the situation. That's verbal judo. That would be an example of that. You're neutralizing the situation. So in this episode, ladies and gentlemen, we have covered a lot in this area. We've talked about how some arts may be more prone to the non-pacifistic way because that's what you train in. That's all you train in. But at the same time, we've also discovered that any art in some ways could have that potential. So you as the person, you as the martial artist need to be able to back up and say, I'm choosing the more peaceful route rather than the more aggressive, combative route when need be. Now, there are times where you had no choice and you do have to meet violence with violence. Plain and simple. I think we can all three agree with that.
Yeah.
But
the law allows for that.
When the law allows for it. We've discovered that when you've only trained on one side, though, you don't get a choice. You don't get a choice if I've only trained in a striking, combative art that I have to go 120% the entire time. I don't have a choice when I need to simply maybe detain somebody. Likewise, if I've only done simple joint locks and no striking, I don't have the ability then to go to the next level if I need be. And then finally, we discussed about looking for like some subtle clues of how do we address it, such as body language, verbal judo, just observing your awareness. These are all concepts that lead to the practical observation. How do you choose a peaceful path when you know the war?